Hey there, so welcome back to another video. As you can see, today we are doing another history and makeup video. We are doing the history of some of the Egyptian queens that you may or may not have heard of and their impact on Egypt as a whole. So as for the makeup look that we're doing today, we are going to do a makeup look sort of inspired by this image, which is meant to be like Bastet, who is an Egyptian goddess, the goddess of cats and so yeah, I just am happy to be doing more history and makeup again, but there might be something coming that might take history and makeup away for a month again. I'm so sorry, but like I can't help myself. This is gonna be like my Medusa video and my history and drag video. It's just me doing the makeup, you guys watching and listening to the stories and the history. So I hope you guys are ready. And with that being said, let's get on to the video. So basically how this will work is I will name a few of the queens of Egypt and their accomplishments and what they did for Egypt as a whole. And then there are three queens in particular who I will be going into more depth with, just because they have more of a story and more facts and things like that. So there are three main queens that I'll be talking about, is because, well, I can't fit everyone's biography into one video. There's also not a lot of information given about the lesser queens in this video. So there's not a lot of history to them that like historians and archaeologists have found yet. I will start by saying that in ancient Egyptian times, men had most of the power. And even though it was part of the royal wife's duty to produce as many heirs as possible, sometimes she'd achieve co-regency and rule the land. While the wives of Egyptian pharaohs were, without a doubt, powerful and highly regarded, few women achieved the status of sole rulers of Egypt. So we'll start with Queen Monique. People are very divided when it comes to her power, and not many people think that she ruled, but some think that she rose to power after the death of her husband, and at the time her son was too young to rule Egypt, so Queen Monique became the very first female ruler of ancient Egypt. Then we have Queen Nefertit, who at the end of the Old Kingdom and the beginning of the first intermediate period, Queen Nefertit likely rose to power in between 2148 BC and 2144 BC, so only 4 years, but I mean that's still something. Although little is known about Queen Nefertit, she is mentioned in many historical writings. Okay, so now we're going to head into one of the more detailed queens who has a lot of information about her and a lot of history. So that queen is Queen Hatshepsut. The accomplishments of Queen Hatshepsut are many, but perhaps the greatest of all was her ability to rule Egypt during the 18th dynasty. Until this time, it had been extremely rare for a woman to sit on the throne of Egypt and unheard of for a woman to boldly assume the role of pharaoh. Considered by some scholars to be history's first woman of importance, Hatshepsut ascended to the status of pharaoh in a very male-dominated ancient Egypt, and her ascension was even more remarkable as she declared herself ruler through a bold power play. Her reign from 1473 BC to 1485 BC was during a particularly fruitful portion of Egypt's 18th dynasty. During her time in power, Egypt had the world's largest army, and the ruling families enjoyed a lifestyle on a lavish scale. A timeline of Queen Hatshepsut's life indicates she was born the daughter of King Tatmus I and one of his queens, and when the king died, the crown was inherited by his son, Tatmus II. In keeping with traditional Egyptian standards, the new king married his father's oldest daughter. This meant that he married his half-sister Hatshepsut. Tatmus II died at a relatively early age, and upon his death, his son by another wife, Tatmus III, became pharaoh. The child was too young at the time to rule the great nation of Egypt, so Hatshepsut took over on his behalf as regent. Hatshepsut ruled as regent for 6 years, and in 1473 BC, Hatshepsut decided she had enough of ruling on behalf of the child and declared herself pharaoh. This was a bold move for a female ruler. It was at this time that Hatshepsut began to take measures to ensure the people of Egypt saw her as a legitimate ruler of the Egyptian nation. According to Egyptian Egyptian customs, the ruling pharaoh would be considered divine. Hatshepsut struck upon the brilliant plan of claiming her mother was visited by the deity Amun-Ra, who called upon her while she was pregnant with Hatshepsut. This would seem to indicate that the queen was divine because of this visit. Hatshepsut was also astute enough to realize that her stronghold on the throne of Egypt was only as strong as the priests' support of her. She therefore made efforts to curry favor with them and succeeded admirably. Finally, Hatshepsut disposed of traditional female clothing and donned the garb of traditional male pharaohs. Reliefs and artwork depicting the female pharaoh indicate that she wore the fake beard similar to ones worn by previous males sitting on the throne of Egypt. The art portraying the queen also seemed to indicate that among the accomplishments of Queen, Hatshepsut also gained the respect of Egyptian people. When Tatmus III came of age, she appointed him leader of her armies. Because of her success in leading Egypt, Hatshepsut enjoyed a long reign in spite of the pressure exerted by Tatmus III to ascend to pharaoh. Once he did become pharaoh, he began a campaign of erasing images and references to Hatshepsut in an effort to cancel out a female link in the long chain of male pharaohs of the day. It had been speculated that he had her assassinated when he became old enough to rule on his own. Through the successful establishments of trade routes and numerous construction projects, Hatshepsut is now considered one of the most accomplished leaders of ancient Egypt. So the next queen who has a lot of history is Nefertiti. Now, Nefertiti's name means a beautiful woman has come. She was the queen of Egypt and the wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten during the 14th century BC. She and her husband established the cult of Aten, the sun god, and promoted Egyptian artwork that was radically different from its predecessors. A bust of Nefertiti is one of the most iconic symbols of Egypt. Little is known about the origins of Nefertiti, but her legacy of beauty and power continue to intrigue scholars today. Some evidence suggests that she hailed from the town Akhim and is the daughter or niece of a high official named A. Other theories have suggested that she was born in a foreign country, possibly Syria. The exact date when Nefertiti married Akhenaten is unknown, and it is believed that she was 15 when they wed, which may have been before Akhenaten assumed the throne. They apparently ruled together from 1353 BC to 1336 BC and had 6 daughters. One of their daughters would eventually marry her half-brother Tutankhamun, the future ruler of Egypt. Artwork from the day depicts the couple and their daughters in an unusually naturalistic and individualistic style, more so than earlier eras. The king and his queen seem to have been inseparable in reliefs, often shown riding in chariots together and even kissing in public. It has been stated that the couple may have had a genuine romantic connection, a dynamic not generally seen in depictions of ancient pharaohs. Nefertiti and the pharaoh took an active role in establishing the Aten cult, a religious mythology which defined Aten as the most important god and the only one worthy of worship in Egypt's polytheistic canon. It is believed that the king and queen were priests, and that it was only through them that ordinary citizens could obtain access to Aten. Nefertiti even changed her name to something else which I cannot pronounce, sadly, which meant beautiful are the beauties of Aten. A beautiful woman has come. So she changed her name just to show her dedication to the new religion. Nefertiti was perhaps one of the most powerful women ever to have ruled. In several reliefs, she is shown wearing the crown of a pharaoh or smiting her enemies in battle. The circumstances surrounding her death are a mystery, as her name disappears from the historical record at about the 12th year of Akhenaten's 17-year reign. A popular theory suggests that Nefertiti abandoned her own title at that point and became official co-regent under the name that she gave herself for the new religion. Another thesis proposes that Nefertiti was driven out of Egypt when worship of Amun-Ra was reintroduced following Akhenaten's reign. Yet, another sect of scholars suggest that Nefertiti ruled as pharaoh by herself. These historians argue that it was Akhenaten who died, and that his successor pharaoh Smenkhka was actually Nefertiti in disguise. If true, Nefertiti adopted a similar position to the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. The next minor queen is Queen Sret, who married Seti II. When the king died, his son Siptah took over the throne. However, Siptah was a sickly boy and unable to rule Egypt effectively. Sret, still owning the title Great Royal Wife, took over co-regency from Siptah. However, it is likely that a Syrian by the name of Bey was the actual ruler of Egypt at that time, behind the scenes. And when Siptah died 6 years into his reign, Sret took over as sole ruler of Egypt for 2 years, when her reign was cut short by civil war. Then the last queen for today is another more fleshed out queen in terms of history and research and things like that, and it's Cleopatra the Seventh. Immortalized in books, movies, and a Shakespearean play, Cleopatra the Seventh became Egypt's most popular ancient Egyptian ruler. Known simply as Cleopatra, she would lead her country despite its declining power. For more than 300 years, Cleopatra's family ruled Egypt, and she was born the third child of King Ptolemy the 12th in 69 BC. Her name meant glory of the father. Cleopatra's 2 older sisters died before her father, leaving her with the rights due to the firstborn child. Although it is not clearly stated in historical texts, some Egyptologists speculate that Cleopatra's mother was the queen's sister, Cleopatra V. Other historians point to the texts that indicate that she was an illegitimate child to the king. Debate exists over the ethnicity of Cleopatra, like not many people know if she was of Greek lineage or if she was of African blood. In either case, the Ptolemy family was not of Egyptian origins. Little is known of Cleopatra's childhood except for the fact that she was being groomed as the future leader of the country. Unlike the rest of her family, Cleopatra took great interest in Egyptian history and religion. She was the only member of her family to learn the Egyptian language. Cleopatra became co-ruler of Egypt at the death of her father in 51 BC. Egyptian law forced her to share her new role as pharaoh with Ptolemy the 13th, her younger brother. In fact, she would never be the sole ruler of Egypt in name, sharing the official title with her brothers and her son. At only 18 years old, Cleopatra became the Queen of Egypt, and she was most likely married to her brother, who was 8 years younger. The young couple ruled an empire that included Egypt, Cyprus, parts of Libya, and various Middle Eastern territories. Cleopatra used the Egyptian religion learned during her childhood to identify herself as the new goddess Isis. Also later fashioning herself as the goddess Aphrodite, she revealed her family's Greek roots. Egyptian texts reveal Cleopatra to be a very popular leader among her people. In a papyrus dated 35 BC, Cleopatra is referred to as the Pilopatris, or she who loves her country. The queen carefully crafted a pageantry of luxury and embellishment, although she was not simply the golden seductress featured in Hollywood movies. Egyptologists consider her ability to reinvent herself to fit any situation to be a key part of her brilliance in politics. Ancient Egyptian records reveal Cleopatra to be an intelligent and powerful ruler. The philosopher Plutarch described her not as a stunning beauty, but as a captivating, persuasive, and charming leader. The death of Cleopatra ended centuries of Egyptian pharaohs, and the Romans took over control of Egypt. While some historians note that Cleopatra was succeeded by her son, Caesarion, as the last pharaoh, he actually never ruled. He was strangled to death. The children of Anthony and Cleopatra were raised by Anthony's ex-wife, Octavia, and while many images of Cleopatra limit her to a sex object, historians note that she was a highly intelligent leader. Her accomplishments held together the Egyptian empire during its decline. So there's actually a lot more of Cleopatra's story as well that I could make a whole video on her basically. So if that's something you guys would be interested in, let me know in the comments down below and then I will get to it. But that is all for this video. Okay, so I am done with the makeup. I know that it's not like directly the same as the image, and I know that you can barely see it. I think that's the problem with the gold. You can't really see the little detail that I put here, and because you can't really see it, I didn't feel like it was necessary to do it on this side, even though in the photo you can see the other side of it. There's like swirlies, so it obviously is an indication that it's on both sides. I was just gonna do this look as just an eye look and just do like the eyeliner and things like that, but I decided to take it a step further and just do like cat features like the mouth and the nose, and I tried to do some like texture around, even though you can barely see it, but that's okay. Hopefully this was a fun video to listen to and to watch, and I hope you guys learned a few new things about Egyptian queens. I hope it was interesting. Please don't forget to like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and you know, if you want to, you can leave a little comment down there. I'd really appreciate it, just to like hear feedback, you know. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great morning or evening or night, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.